Okay, this is a video for beef casserole. This is based on a Slimming World recipe for slow cookers. So this is the Slimming World beef and ale stew, but it's slightly adapted. Two major ways that it has been adapted. The first thing is it doesn't contain any ale. So I've taken out the beer from the recipe, but just changed that so we've got slightly richer stock that I'm using. And the second major change is that instead of using plain flour, I'm using some corn flour to try and give it a slightly thicker sauce than you'd get otherwise. So ingredients are 400 grams of diced beef. Come back to that in a moment. We've got carrots, we've got celery, there's going to be some mushrooms as well, some button mushrooms, and then there's, for the sauce, there's going to be whole grain mustard, we're going to have some stock, there's going to be a teaspoon of brown sugar as well, and we're going to make up the sauce with some corn flour, as I mentioned. Let's come back to the beef, because we're aiming for 5% or less fat in the beef, which when you're buying mince is quite easy, but otherwise it may not be completely obvious what percentage fat we're actually talking about. So this one on the front has one value which says 8%. Now, that bit of a maths lesson here. The 8% is referring to the amount of fat per 100 grams. That's the amount of fat in here. 100 grams of this is 8% of your recommended amount. But that's not the Slimming World recommended amount. That's the recommended daily intake amount. So that figure is actually fairly useless for doing any calculations for Slimming World. What we actually need to know is that it does say on here that 125 grams contains 5.4 grams of fat. So what we would want is, if we're looking for 5% fat, 5% of 125 grams would be about 6.25 grams. That would be 5%. If it was 5% fat, it's actually 5.4 grams. 5.4 is less than 6.25, so we're okay. We know that this is less than 5% fat, but it's worth checking that when you're buying beef other than mince. So this, as I said, is a slow cooker recipe, so it's going to take about 10-15 minutes to prepare maybe, and then about 7 hours to cook on low on the slow cooker. So I've got my slow cooker pot, and you're going to see me off screen throwing everything into that. So we're going to start with carrots. They just need to be cut into chunks. So that's the carrots done, so just the celery as well. So that's the carrots and celery all chopped up, so that can just go straight into the slow cooker pot. Forgot to mention one vital ingredient in the introduction, and that is shallots. So this is a 400 gram bag of shallots, so they just need trimming top and bottom, which is fun or not. and then they can go straight in the pot. I like peeling shallots really, just top and tail them, and I take the outer layer off with the brown layer as well. So you get just 2 little bits like that sometimes just one. I'm going to carry on doing the other 1,000. Right, so that's all the whole shallots and the celery and the carrots. So I'm now going to add some mushrooms. So this is around about, these are two little packs of butter mushrooms. The recipe suggests chestnut butter mushrooms, but just normal butter mushrooms work well. But if you like the slightly nuttier taste of the chestnut ones, you could go for that. So that's all the mushrooms just going in now. I'll add the beef in too. So that's the beef. And we'll just make up the sauce. Right, for the sauce I'm going to have a tablespoon of corn flour. That was 1 sin. Just a little bit of water, just to mix in with that, and try and remember your mixing spoon. So I'm just going to mix that up in a saucepan for now, because I'm going to give it a little bit of heat before it goes in to the pot. So this is 300 mils of boiling water. I'm actually going to add 2 stock pots for that slightly richer sauce. So that's slightly mixed in. I'm going to pop that into the saucepan. As I said, we can stir that up in the hob in a moment, but I'm also going to add 1 teaspoon of brown sugar, and also 1 teaspoon of whole grain mustard. And then I'm just going to give that a little bit of heat to thicken, and then it can go into the pot. Right, so I've just brought the stock to the boil. So I'm going to just pour that over there, and what it does is it just gives you a thicker sauce than we get otherwise. So just mix all of that in. So the last couple of bits is to add a little bit of salt and pepper. If this is looking like there's not much moisture, don't worry, because obviously there are juices from the meat and the vegetables that come out as well. The basic recipe I'm following uses 400 millilitres of liquid, but I find that is way too much and you get a really runny sauce. So I'd like something a little bit thicker than that, but you can experiment with that as you wish. Finally, might as well add a bay leaf because it's kind of traditional, isn't it? and then put it on the to cook for 7 hours on low on your slow cooker. So, as promised, hopefully you can see there that there is quite a bit of sauce now, so that's still too runny for me. I'm going to thicken that up a little bit more, so I'm just going to strain that. So that's the strained liquid. I'm just going to add that to another tablespoon of corn flour that's been mixed with a little bit of cold water. I'm just going to add that in and then put that on a hob and bring it to the boil, giving it a good stir. So there you go, there are 2 full portions and 2 leftover portions. So that was 3.5 sin all together, so probably about just under a sin for each of the bigger bowls there. So that's got a third of a bowl of vegetables, plus all the vegetables of course in the casserole, and also potatoes. Just to recap, the sins were 2 sins for the 2 tablespoons of corn flour. There was another sin for the teaspoon of brown sugar, and there was half a sin for the teaspoon of whole grain mustard. There you go, enjoy.